Well, hello, good afternoon. My name is Kim Delgado, and we're going to be talking about the vRealize Automation 7 hands-on lab that was just released 2 days ago. Did anybody here attend the vForum online a couple days ago? We had a great online event. We actually launched a few new labs, but the vRealize Automation 7 is the first 100% net new lab that was launched for the spring release of the hands-on labs. Is everybody able to hear me okay? We good? All right. So just a quick introduction of the team. So the team that built this lab was also the team that built last year's 1632 lab. Does anybody have a chance to take any of the other vRA labs in the hands-on labs online? Great. So we have a couple of version 6 labs out there, 1621, 1632. Our team built the 1632 lab around some of the advanced use cases, and then we went ahead and built this brand new lab all around the new release of vRA 7. Has anybody here actually had their chance to get their hands on version 7, installed it, played with it at all yet? Excellent. All right, so when you, it's available now, it's available on the public site. We've had a lot of demand for it. If you go ahead and log into the hands-on labs, or if you just go to this URL that I put up here for you, you'll be able to access the version 7 lab, and it's going to focus entirely on the what's new spotlight features. Oh, you want me to go back to get the URL? All good? It's focusing on the spotlight features of vRealize 7, vRealize Automation 7. So the 3 key pillars of this new release are the time to value features, so the enhanced installation wizard, the simplified architecture, and the replacing our authentication with VIDM, or the vRealize VMware Identity Manager. There we go. Get the right one. So we replaced the SSO2 with VIDM. The Converged Blueprint Designer for building not only your infrastructure blueprints now, but now you can build your software components, drag those onto your infrastructure blueprints, add your NSX components, and define your dependencies, pass properties between your hosts and your software components, and build actual, 3-tier application stacks completely isolated through NSX and all of that good stuff. And then last but not least, we have the extensibility and supportability. So the event broker, which replaces the workflow stubs that we had in version 6 or even version 5.2. And the enhanced logging capabilities and the enhanced the brand new login site content pack. So all of this stuff, all of these new features are actually going to be covered in the HOL 1633 hands-on lab. Now the best part is we've actually built some of those templates for you, so you can go in and be able to actually play with stuff that we've already built for you, some application stacks and whatnot. So the table of contents, as you can see, covers all of those new features. We talk about the architecture. We show you a video of the new installation wizard and go into more detail about the identity manager and some of the new features, enhanced features with 2-factor authentication, branding per tenant, and all of that good stuff for VIDM. The Converged Blueprint Designer, allowing you, again, to build not only your IaaS blueprints, but add in your NSX and your app authoring. And we also talk about XaaS using vRealize Orchestrator and building dependencies. So we have several apps in the lab that are already composed and ready for you to test out. You can dig in and you can see how we built those, and then we actually walk you through using those components to build your own versions of those blueprints and testing those out yourself. So you actually get to get your hands on and actually see how we've built some stuff for you. It's a great way to give it a test run without having to go through the process of actually installing it in your own environment and configuring everything from scratch. And we also go through using Orchestrator to extend and integrate. So we do some ITSM integration using external approvals. Does anybody else use vRA 6X? So one of the common requests that we get is, CMDB integration or external approvals, being able to use your ServiceNow or Remedy for doing external approvals instead of using the embedded approval policies. So we show you how to do that here, and we also do a CMDB integration through Orchestrator using the new event broker. Gives us a lot more flexibility than the 5 or 6 workflow stubs that we had in 6X. You can tack on to that life cycle and enhance those life cycles using vRealize Orchestrator at many different places throughout the life cycle of the deployment. And again, now we're not just tied to the IaaS components like we were in 6X. We can actually extend other parts of the process. So enough of the slides. I want to actually get in and show you guys. Show you guys the lab. Who here has used the hands-on labs to look at any of our products before? Has anybody not used the hands-on labs? So the hands-on labs are a free tool. There we go. I'll get it here eventually. All right, there we go. So it's a there we go. Everybody able to see that okay? So again, the hands-on labs, we have probably 25 or 30 different hands-on labs available to you covering all different aspects of VMware and partner solutions. But again, 1633, HOL SDC 1633 is the new one, all around vRA 7. And again, we have a number of complex 2 or 3 tier application blueprints already built here for you. So I just want to give you an idea of the complexity of the blueprints that you can build today with the designer. So I think, did everybody see Jad's keynote this morning? He was showing a few slides of this, right? So this will actually give you the opportunity to go in and get your hands on the tool and test out the designer. Down the left-hand side, you can see we have machine types, software components, existing blueprints, so we can actually nest blueprints. We can build and publish blueprints and then reuse those blueprints inside of other blueprints. And then we have our networking and security, which exposes all of our NSX components and being able to drag those security groups, as well as on-demand load balancers and all that sort of thing onto the canvas and leverage those within the blueprints, and they get created at deployment time, but more importantly, they get destroyed when you destroy the deployment, so you don't have to worry about cleaning up manually after the fact. And then we also have our XaaS components. So this is where we're able to build components that for external tools like an F5 load balancer, or in this case, we're using it to build a Puppet, to build a Puppet component which we can drag on, which will actually install some software via Puppet instead of using the application architecture. So once we actually have all of our components onto the canvas, you can actually see that we can build dependencies. So we need to deploy our database server before we can, we need to have our database actually deployed and spun up so we can actually create a connection to it from our software or from our application. So that's where we can drag and drop a dependency that actually allows us to pass properties between the two. So you can see that I need, for example, a database password in my software before I can actually connect to that database from my application. Once we have our blueprint built, we can actually go and request that blueprint, and we can actually watch the status of that deployment as we go. So I'm just going to open up another browser so I can actually log in as a consumer. So we were logged in as an administrator or an architect, someone that can actually build the blueprints given those different components. And now I'm going to log in as a consumer and actually deploy one of those blueprints so we can have a look at it. If you guys have any questions as we go through, feel free to jump in. So I'm going to go ahead and just request one of my WordPress application. And you can see on the request screen, I already went past it here, but you'll actually see all of the different components of this blueprint on the request screen. So you can see that I have 2 virtual machines, but I have several different software components. So you can actually keep your SQL installation script separate from your actual database script. So you can reuse your SQL install script and then build different scripts for building or creating certain, specific databases, and separate system configurations so you can reuse those components. And again, down here you can see that I have an Apache service, and then on top of that Apache service I can drop whatever application service I need to onto the canvas. If I go ahead and take a look at the request that I submitted earlier, you can't tell too much looking at this screen, but if I dive into the execution information, it will actually show me step by step where the build is at. So you can see that my on-demand load balancer was already set up, and I'm right now waiting on my virtual machines to be created. And again, everything is the dependencies are all built into that blueprint via the designer. So obviously we have to spin up the virtual machines first, and then it'll start to install the software components, but it won't start to do the Apache server until I have my database server already installed and powered up, so I have that information that I need to pass back. Does anybody have any questions so far? Does anybody want to keep seeing more? More? Yes? All right. So one of my favorite parts of version 7 is actually the event broker. So again, event broker replaces the workflow stubs that we had that only lived on the IaaS deployments in the previous versions of the tool with a service that can span the entire product. So we can have, out of the box, we have quite a few different types of event topics. And then within each topic, there are a large number of, we can apply conditions. So we can actually say, instead of machine life cycle, we can do those, we can leverage those 5 or 6 steps that we had before, but beyond that we can actually create subscriptions that will call a workflow, call a vRA workflow, but those subscriptions can have conditions built on them, so we can say that they're dependent on the machine being provisioned, and then, but we can say it's only for the blueprints that have Windows in the name. What it means is that we can manage all of those subscriptions in one central place instead of having to go and tie a specific vRA workflow to each and every blueprint that we create. But it also allows us, like we saw on the previous page, it allows us to create, let me scoot back over here. It allows us to create top subscriptions for things like approvals. So we can actually now have hooks directly into the vRA approval process. So we can actually, we can call out to Orchestrator to get a list of approvers that need to approve a workflow, rather than trying to build that into the approval definition or the approval service within vRA. We can call out to vRO to actually create an approval in another system, so in another tool. We can, and then we can block it. We can say this process can't go forward until we get an approval back. So we have what we call blocking subscriptions. But the same is true, for example, if you need to go out to get DNS names, IP addresses, you want any of that kind of stuff, you can add into this process. So we actually walk through 2 different examples in the hands-on lab, and you'll go through them in detail. One is around approvals, and the other one is around CMDB. So we actually go out and create a CMDB record for a machine that we're provisioning. I'm just going to go ahead and take a look. So then again, and we use these, so some of the Puppet integration or some of the other existing workflows already are using subscriptions. So this is a sample of the conditions that we can use. So we can leverage the lifecycle states like we had in the previous version of the tool. So we can say, for example, we want something to trigger at the building machine, at the disposing, machine activated, those sorts of things. But we've expanded that list significantly. So now instead of being able to extend at 5 or 6 sort of limiting spots in the provisioning process, we have a lot more. And again, we can actually build conditions around XAS and other parts of the blueprint instead of just around the infrastructure components or those machine provisioning steps. Any questions about this topic or deeper dive? Good? What I'd love to have you do is actually go home tomorrow or this weekend or next week when you're not busy and actually jump in and give these labs a try. Love to have your feedback. We'll be building more later. We're actually starting, we just finished this one, just released it, and we're already building the labs for VMworld for this August. So you'll get a lot more great content around vRA 7 coming in at the end of August, but at least we have this one to tide you over until then. Any other questions? Great, thank you very much.